Hello and welcome to a live edition of Beyond the Pod. I'm Brandon Mileski, former Golden Gopher great Pat Micheletti with me as well. And like I said, we're going to be live here for the next half hour or so, leading you up to those who want to watch United States versus Marco Rossi and Austria in the World Juniors. But this is a live edition of Beyond the Pod. So if you want to send us a message, if you are watching via the KFAN YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter channel, we can probably get to your questions and comments at some point in the next half hour or so. And Pat, let's talk about, oh, by the way, Beyond the Pod is brought to you by sodastick.com and Gatherwell, and we'll give you a little bit more information on them later in this podcast. But let's begin with the World Juniors.
Yeah.
USA loses to Russia 4-3 last night. Obviously, they got themselves in a hole 4-1 and tried to rally in the third period. I did not start watching until they were down 2-1, and then I saw just two pretty bad goals that they gave up to stretch that deficit to 3. What were your overall thoughts on the loss last night to the Russians?
Well, listen, when you're playing in a tournament like this, the top teams are all ultra talented. Finland, Sweden, Canada, the Czechs, the Russians. I'm probably missing a team or two, but Finland, yeah, I mentioned Finland. But I guess the point is that they're 18 years old. They're ultra talented. A majority of them will play in the National Hockey League, and it's going to come down to great goaltending and the team that makes the least amount of mistakes. And the U.S. got in a little trouble last night, got behind, and once you get behind against a team like Russia, like Canada, like Sweden, you're chasing the whole game, and so it's really tough. I think they'll bounce back. They're obviously they're going to play a different goaltender tonight, which is probably the right thing to do. But I think they'll be fine. But Russia is really, really good, and so it's only game one, so we'll see.
Specifically, a Russia team you don't want to get behind, just because they have arguably the best goaltender at that age group in Askarov, who the Wild were considering in that range of drafting in the first round until Marco Rossi slipped to him. So it's not a goalie you want to get behind 3 goals on. It's obviously disappointing to kind of have that result last night in the first game of the tournament. But I would also say, from what I saw, Pat, a lot of what went wrong in that game is very correctable, right? I mean, it wasn't like a lack of talent. It wasn't. It was just kind of they couldn't handle the Russians dumping the puck in.
Right.
The goaltender gives one away on the 4th goal. The 3rd goal was another one where that communication between the goaltender and defenseman, and these are obviously players that haven't been playing together very often. I didn't watch that game and go, man, we're just not gonna be able to beat anybody. They just they made just kind of elementary mistakes last night that I would think would be pretty fixable.
You don't want to go on the excuse-o-meter for Team USA, because we could say, well, you mentioned the communication. Well, these guys haven't played together a lot. Okay, the Russians probably have. Same with Canada; they've been together for a month. All right, throw that all out. But you're right; they're very talented. Their defensemen are really good. They've got some jump up front. I'm talking about Team USA, and they really kind of beat themselves. And like you said, it's correctable. They're good. They're probably going to be mad tonight and come out and play better.
What did you think of the first round pick from 2 years ago for the Minnesota Wild, currently playing at Boston College in Matthew Boldy? I saw a little bit of the preliminary game against Finland. What I can see is clearly he's a good sized kid. He can skate well for his size. Pretty strong on the puck. Pretty skilled for his size. What I noticed most is they put him out in every situation. I mean, power play, penalty kill. They're kind of thought of to be the top line when they were playing Finland and they needed to close things out. He was out on the ice. He's kind of a pretty versatile player.
You and I have these conversations a lot about, okay, should they draft this guy or pick this guy? And then all of a sudden the determinations are going to be made. Oh, this guy is going to be, how could we pass on this guy or that guy? Um, and that's why you look at Matt Boldy, and he started off the year last year terrible. Then he didn't make the junior team. Then I think he grew up a little bit because the second half of the year he was terrific. This offseason, he put weight on. He got bigger, stronger, um, and worked with the right people. So, we're seeing him mature. What's he going to be like next year? We don't know. He's trajecting forward. I like a lot of what he does. And he's versatile. He can play center and he can play the wing. Looks like he's probably going to end up on the wing, in his career. But man, I just I hate when people, right when kids get drafted, put a label on him, whether he's not going to make it or going to make it. But I like what I saw.
Well, what I like the most is the way he handled adversity. Right, he had a slow
Yeah.
first half of the season last year. He got cut from this United States World Juniors team last year, and he, got motivated. He got inspired.
Yep.
He put the work in. He gained some confidence. To me, that says a lot about a player and a human being to kind of have things not going your way. As well as I know. I'm sure these kids
Huh.
are online. They've seen the Cole Caulfield comparison.
Oh boy.
And I was one of those guys who wanted them to draft Cole Caulfield just strictly, he's an electric player and is a pure sniper.
Yep.
But one, I like how he handled adversity. Two, moving forward, people kind of keep wanting to compare the two and who's going to have the better career. They might just both be great, really good NHL
You never
players.
know.
Yeah.
Who knows? And I think Jerry York should be commended too as coach at Boston College. He knew right away when he got cut. I'm sure you read the article by Scott Wheeler. Great article on
Yeah.
Matt. Where Jerry York called up one of his former players who got cut from the team. 15 years ago, and they had a good conversation and put it in perspective. And just because you get cut from one team, that doesn't mean the end of your career or you spiral downwards. And he used it, as you said, as motivation, and it's paying off for him now.
Last topic on Matthew Boldy. Lindsay Baker wants to know, when will Matt Boldy be on the Minnesota Wild? I would have to imagine with the season he's having that maybe turning pro next year might be in the cards for him.
I think so. That's a great question, Lindsay. Thank you for the question. I think if he projects the way that he has been, there's no reason why he might that he wouldn't be ready to make that jump next year. It's a big jump. He'll probably have to spend some time, down in the American League, like most guys do. But he may feel that he's ready, and I'm sure the Wild are very happy with the way that he's progressing. And so I would guess next year.
Another Wild draftee that we'll see tonight for Austria on when he'll return or when he'll debut for the Minnesota Wild. We'll talk about that next. But first, Pat, let's talk about one of our sponsors of Beyond the Pod, and that would be Gatherwell.
Yes, Gatherwell. Gatherwell is your drive-through COVID testing medical service, providing you an immediate COVID test result. Gatherwell's lab performs leading antigen testing with a comfortable nasal swab using a point-of-care analyzers that produce 96 to 99% accurate results within 20 minutes. Gatherwell's drive-through labs are located in Edina, Ham Lake, and Otsego. They've performed well over 10,000 COVID tests that are insurance reimbursable. Gatherwell is safe, fast, and accurate. Go to gatherwell.com.
All right, thank you to Gatherwell for being one of our sponsors on Beyond the Pod. Marco Rossi, we'll get to see him tonight. United States versus Austria. Not sure he'll have too much help in terms of line mates for Austria. But the question going into the season, Pat, and we finally have a schedule set up in the National Hockey League.
Yep.
We have the dates. We know when training camp's going to be. We're going to have a season starting on January 13th. What are your thoughts on Marco Rossi's ability to make the opening day roster and at least maybe continue forward throughout the season?
Well, what was he? The 8th overall pick, right?
Ninth, I believe. Yeah.
Ninth overall pick. Okay. If you're the 9th overall pick, you have a pretty good chance of making it, depending upon what team you are going to. He's coming to the Minnesota Wild. The Minnesota Wild are in desperate need of centermen. There's no other way to get around it. I think Billy Guerin's done a terrific job, and you cannot get everything you want all in 1 year. That being said, they filled the need with Marco Rossi. I think they should give him every opportunity, put him with the right people. Because some of the guys they have up there, with Zach and Fiala and Kaprizov. I think he deserves every chance to make this team. I hope they do. I hope they give him a crack, because this team needs help up the middle. And I know, Brandon, from you and I talking to him, he's a pretty mature kid, and that's a big part of it. So I'm anxious to see him play.
Well, they definitely have openings at the center position
Yeah.
that they've left on the depth chart for him to be able to step in if he is capable of doing so. The one thing with him, a lot of kids that are 18, 19, just physically they aren't developed, and the knock on him, the reason he probably fell to 9 was his size in terms of height.
His height,
but his size in terms of thickness and strength and his ability to stay on his feet. That's why I was never worried about drafting him, because I don't care that he's 5'9", because he goes to the dirty areas. He doesn't get knocked off pucks in the corners. In fact, he comes out with the puck. He's extremely strong for his size. So who cares that he's 2-3 inches a little bit shorter than maybe most.
And for the people who don't know his story is great, and he's using that as his motivation for everything that his father did. The 2-hour trips back and forth every day for practice. The kid wants it, and he's been really good at every level. And I just think your pick, Brandon, you wanted Rossi, and I hope he gets a good chance.
All right, let's talk about the Wild depth chart, and I know what Michael Russo writes is not final in any way, shape, or form. I also know lines are going to change. But when we found out Matt Zuccarello,
players.
but when Matt Zuccarello's not going to be in the lineup to start the season, it's amazing how badly that depth chart takes a hit pretty quickly. I saw on Russo's depth chart on the second line we have Kirill Kaprizov coming in for Russia, going to make his NHL debut.
Yep.
And you're pairing him with Joel Eriksson Ek at center and Jordan Greenway at wing, and I just wanted to throw up, because we've been waiting for star power for so long. I think we might have it in Kevin Fiala, hoping to have it in Kirill Kaprizov. But as well as I know, Pat, you can. I don't care how good you are, if you have defensive players or guys who haven't proven themselves, you still got to have line mates to a certain extent, unless you're Connor McDavid.
100%. And that brings me right back to Marco Rossi, who's an offensive guy who can play at both ends of the ice, but he's more of an offensive guy. You know what, Brandon, if he struggles on the defensive side a little bit, I don't care. He can learn that. He's young.
Yep.
But what he does have is the ability to create offensively. And that's what this team needs. They've got Ek. They've got Sturm. They can be your defensive forwards. Bonino, right? I mean, they need some offense out of their top 6. If they're a one-line team, as we saw pretty much, in the playoffs, or a one man with Fiala, then it's going to be a long year. I like the acquisition of Johansen. I'd love to see him on the wing. Unfortunately, it's not going to start out that way, because they didn't make another deal. So that being said, I mean, you've got a guy like Kaprizov, and you've got a guy like Fiala. You've got to either keep them together and get someone formidable in the middle to play with them, or else it's going to be hard. And those guys are goal scorers. Yes, they can create their own, but they can't do it every time. They need to be set up. They need the pucks in the right spots. So it's a big concern.
Yeah, the topic is coming up and you just brought it up, about Kaprizov and Fiala. Will they play together? Will they not play together?
Yeah.
I know Dean Evason was on KFAN with Michael Russo as the host, and whether he's telling the truth or not.
Yeah.
Said that, ideally he would like to split the two of them up so you can have balance on both
Yeah.
lines. And I understand that. I
Sure.
guess, and I, in no way, shape, or form am I comparing them to Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews. But to me, if I'm the coach, I'd play them like Toews and Kane, where sometimes they're together, sometimes they're not, depending on matchups. Maybe in the middle of the game, maybe you start them separately and it's not going well for you. After one period, you switch, put them together. Or if you just have certain matchups you like, or if there's an offensive zone face-off where the opposing team just got icing and their third D pair is out there and their fourth line, put them both out there together.
Right.
To me,
Yeah.
I think you need to be able to adapt and be versatile.
Creative.
And yeah, sometimes let's put them together, sometimes let's split them up, and depending on the situation, let's not just go, well, we got to have one guy in the first line, one guy in the second line to make sure we have a good top six. Move it around a little bit. Tinker.
Yep. You especially when you're lacking in certain areas, you know, you know, these teams nowadays, they watch more video. They know more about their opponent than sometimes they do their own team, and you don't want to get to a point where, oh, we're playing Minnesota. Here's how you beat them. Here's how other teams are beating them on a nightly basis. You got to have that ability to be able to throw other things at another team based on what you have. And I definitely agree. And that's why Chicago's been so good. Do you think Patrick Kane and Taves really care where they are? They want to be out on the ice. They want to be out on the ice at the right times, and they want to be out on the ice together at times. And so I think that's what they should do.
Well, the one thing specifically Kane has been able to do throughout his career is elevate others, which is what we're going to need.
Oh yeah,
which we're going to need out of our superstars here. Looking at the roster overall, and I want to talk about the West Division here shortly because they're in a brand new division this year, at least for this season. Defensive core, I think we both like.
Yes.
Goaltending, I don't think can be worse than last year. So even if Cam Talbot is just okay, you should get an upgrade at least there.
Yep.
Obviously the forwards concern me greatly. I think we're kind of a little too dependent on Marco Rossi being able to step in as a 19-year-old to be able to the center position. I think is just kind of is not going to work for this season. And I think we should also say that maybe the Wild aren't playing for this year. I think the way they've constructed the roster and putting a lot of guys on 1-year deals and trying to create cap flexibility for next year. I think this is a team that's looking towards 2-3 years down the road and building for a championship contender there. But at least for this 2020-21 season, it's hard not to be concerned about the center position and what you're going to be able to get for them and how that's going to be able to affect all your forwards.
Well, I think you're right. Listen, I'm sure there were some other deals that Billy turned down that maybe would help them now and not in 2 years. And so I think he's going about it the right way. Like you said, you got you bring in a guy like Bukestad. He's got 1 year left on his deal. Is he going to resurrect his career? If he does, there's a better chance that they'll make the playoffs. Same with Marcus Johansen. 2 years ago, he was really good. They moved him up moved him to center and didn't fare quite as well. He's a good player, good passer, good on the power play, will help the power play, and if he can help there, great. They're getting a guy in Bonino who a lot of people love. I know you had Ryan Carter on your show during the week, and Ryan played with him a little bit, and and we've seen Bonino play in every situation. He gives it all every time he's on the ice. He'll block a shot. He'll put his face in front of it. He'll play with a broken bone, and he has the ability to score big goals. Now he's not going to be every night. We have to count on Nick Bonino to score. But you know what you're going to get out of them every night, and I think that's really important in solidifying a third line that maybe Brandon, if they get the right combination together and guys start feeling good about themselves, that they can contribute more often than not.
They are, though, a Fiala injury, even a Parisi injury, Kaprizov injury from having some troubles scoring this year.
The depth is not there. No doubt.
Let's talk about, let's preview the new West Division shortly. But first, let's talk about sodastick.com, where you can get your original Minnesota sports inspired goods. If you haven't seen their stuff yet, you really got to check it out. One of my favorite designs, currently wearing it right now, it's the 1980 U.S. Miracle hat. All of their apparel is screen printed right here in Minnesota on super soft, super comfy shirts and hoodies. You will absolutely love it. And we're going to hook you up with free shipping on your next order. So use the code KFAN for free shipping. That is sodastick.com. Original Minnesota sports inspired goods. Use the code KFAN for free shipping. Minnesota Wild, because of the all Canadian divisions, the divisions got realigned. They're going to be going out west. Two teams from the Central are going with them, St. Louis and Colorado, and they'll be with the three California teams, San Jose, LA, Anaheim, and then Arizona.
Yeah.
Did I get them all? I don't remember.
I think you did. Yes.
And Vegas Golden Knights.
Yep.
I think you look at it and you go, well, you have three teams that should be obvious playoff teams. We should say the top four in this division will all go to the playoffs and they'll play within their division. So there's not dealing with the wild cards we have in the past. You would think the top three, Vegas, Colorado, and St. Louis, and nothing's a shoe-in a shortened 56-game season. Correct. It might be wonky with COVID. Who knows? There's going to be a lot of wonky stuff going on. But if it's a normal season, you'd have to think those three are pretty close as to being locks to getting in. Then on the other side of this, though, you had LA, Anaheim, and San Jose that were three teams that did not even make the playoffs in a 12-team field last year in the Western Conference. All three of them missed it. And then you have an Arizona team that, they lost Taylor Hall and good year last year, but kind of a dysfunctional organization with what happened going on this offseason. I would think the Wild would be in the mix to kind of compete for that fourth playoff spot.
Well, I think so. And like you said, this season is going to be different with 56 games. And you don't know, like you said, with COVID, injuries are going to play a factor. You're going to need your goaltending. I mean, the goaltending is going to be critical. You can't lose a game by giving up bad goals, because it'll just kill you. So, San Jose made some deals. They're trying to revamp their team a little bit. Vegas, you have them as a team that is in there, and you look at their roster, and they're very talented. But they really got away from who they were. Remember their first year, Brandon?
Yeah.
And they were a bunch of guys that, other teams kind of said, okay, we'll let this guy go. We'll let this guy go. And it was a prove me year for them. And they all banded together and their locker room was great. And, they just, they were an exciting team to watch. Now they're starting to bring in all these high priced guys, older aging veterans. How are they going to mesh? And I don't think they figured that out a year ago. So even though they're talented, I'm not sold on them yet. But that being said, let's talk the Wild, right? I think when the strength is obviously going to be their goaltending and their defense. There's no doubt about it. I shouldn't say their goaltending yet. It should be better. But with their 4D that they have, and I think Matt Dumba is going to be critical because I think at the end of last year, he started getting back to his old self a little bit, and I'm not ready to give up on him yet. I think he can really add offensively to this team, and I think he's going to have to with what they have up front. So, listen, they'll be right there for a playoff. I don't know if they're ready to win a Stanley Cup yet, though.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned Dumba. The power play alone. And they were an average power play team last year. They got a lot better when they decided to hand the keys over to Kevin Fiala, and they said, "All right, we're running the power play through Kevin Fiala. You're going to bring the puck up the ice. You're going to be the main guy we focus on in the offensive zone." And I thought the power play improved up until that point. You add, Kaprizov, and who knows what we're going to get out of him, but you'd like to think he's going to be an upgrade on the power play. And then, no reason to believe that Dumba can't at least improve off of last year and get, not that he was going to be on that, that 35 goal pace he was, the previous season.
Yeah.
But the power play alone, and as you mentioned, Pat, injuries in a shortened season, right? When you're playing 58 games, and if you have a main guy who's out for 25 game stretch, which is a quarter and a third of a season in a typical season, now becomes half a season. That has a huge impact.
What I liked about what Dean Evison did with this team last year was he kind of took the reins off them a little bit. Okay. And And I look at a guy like Kevin Fiala, and you know what I say to him? I let him go. I just go do your thing. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to turn the puck over, but that's okay because you're going to make other plays that got you to where you are, and that's what I'm hoping that he does with Kaprizov, and not to take away from anything defensively, but let him play a little bit more because you've got guys up front now with those two that are potential superstars, and that's what the fans come to watch. And I think if he lets them go a little bit, I think they could be exciting.
Well, that's why it's important for Kaprizov to be a superstar on this roster
Yeah.
because, I think Kevin Fiala got a little bit of taste in the playoffs against Vancouver of, guess what? You're the man now, and the league knows you're the man. You're not flying under the radar anymore. And they checked the heck out of him. They were physical on him. You could tell he got very frustrated in that series. Was taking retaliatory penalties. He still got points in that series, but he's going to learn what it's going to be like to get some star treatment, and that's why you got to have other guys contributing, and that's why Kaprizov's got to arrive, and hopefully Rossi, not necessarily this season, but hopefully sooner than later, gives him a little bit of help.
Oh, without a doubt. And that's why, I like the fact that, even though I know Brandon Rossi is only 18 years old, but, I think he really wants it bad. And, and I think he's worked really, really hard to get ready. I mean, you and I asked him, and of course he's going to say yes, well, maybe not. Some guys say, maybe not. Maybe I need a year. We asked him, are you ready to play? Yeah, I'm ready to play. I've worked hard. I've gotten faster. I've gotten stronger. I just think, if you play him with guys that are really good, and Kaprizov is really good, and Fiala is really good, you play him with one of those guys and let him make mistakes. I think I think that and eventually might be the best thing for him.
It's really too bad that Rossi's team in Europe kind of got they all got COVID, and he himself got COVID. And he only ended up playing one game for them due to the COVID situation. At least he is going to have World Juniors coming up, but man, he could have had such an advantage coming into training camp or playing with grown men in Europe in a pretty good league. And he would have had an advantage on all these players. I want to talk quickly, just some of the other teams in this West Division.
Yes,
because I do love the setup, by the way, that they're going to be playing back-to-back games against all these teams, and they're going to have they're going to have two stretches where they're playing 4 games in a row, which could be interesting if something happens early on in those series. But St. Louis, I mentioned them as kind of one of the 3 teams that should be kind of a lock to get in. But the more I think about it, they lost Pietrangelo, one of their best defensemen.
Big loss.
Big loss to Vegas. Alexander Steen, who's a pretty competent veteran player, he retired. Tarasenko is coming off of a very severe injury and is out until March, so he's going to be missing a chunk of the season. When he comes back, who knows, how quickly he's going to be able to come back to 100% pure form. So, I do think there's reason to believe that St. Louis could drop back a little bit too.
I think when you win a Stanley Cup, and not that. Not that they, played differently, than the year that they won the cup, but I think it's really hard mentally and to get yourself to that level again and play at that level. Obviously, the goaltender Bennington was not great for him in the playoffs. In fact, they went to Jake Allen in part of the playoffs last year. So, I think they'll be rejuvenated, but when you lose key pieces like you do, it's going to be tougher, and they need some of their younger players like a Thomas and guys like that, Sanford, to elevate their game. Scott Perunovich is one of the kids that I'm hoping will make their team. I think he has a good chance now that Pietrangelo is gone, but
where's he from?
He would be probably the best player to ever come out of Hibbing, Minnesota.
Well, that ain't saying much.
Yeah,
the bar is not set very high there.
No, not really. No. More on the basketball side with Dick Garmaker and Kevin McHale,
and producing musicians
and Bobby Dylan. That's right. Yeah, Bob Zimmerman, by the way. Yeah, St. Louis will be, they're always going to play a tough game. They play four lines and they're big and they grind you. Nothing fancy, but so of course they're going to be tough again.
And Colorado, I would pick them as the favorite to win the division. Obviously, the star power is there, right? I mean, McKinnon's one of the league's best players. Cale Makar is one of the best young defensemen in the National Hockey League. Rantanen's really good. Landeskog's good. They've been kind of looking for some additional scoring other than just those main three forwards and trying to get a little bit more complementary scoring. They did acquire Brandon Saad during the offseason. He's a guy who had a good run with Chicago, but never was really able to recapture that since he lost Patrick Kane as a line mate.
Right.
What did you think of the Brandon Saad acquisition in Colorado season coming up here?
Well, they got faster. They got rid of Zadorov, who I liked back there on defense for him. He was 6'7", big defenseman. I thought, and he's young. And so, I still think, even though they have Makar, I do think they need another defenseman to get to that level where they can win a cup. Anytime you have Nathan McKinnon and the guys that you mentioned, they're going to be right there, right at the top. I mean, you've got 5 or 6 guys you got to take a look at and try to slow down and stop. And they're going to be awfully good.
We still have another week or two to preview the Minnesota Wild season, so we'll get into it more as we approach the January 13th date. But let's get out of here because I got to watch Marco Rossi and Austria take on Team USA.
So do I. And let's not judge him after tonight. Let's not judge him, right?
Unless he's really good, then we're going to judge him.
Correct. Have a great night, Brandon.
Thanks, Pat. Appreciate it. He's Pat Micheletti. I'm Brandon Mileski. This has been another episode of Beyond the Pod, brought to you by SodaStick. SodaStick.com. Use the code KFAN for free shipping, and also brought to you by Gatherwell. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you're listening to this on the podcast, we'll talk to you next week right here on Beyond the Pod. Bye.